up, nerds? Welcome back to Will of DDT. And I just want to start off with saying I am sorry. I know I ended off our last tier list video by saying, yeah, I think the meta is not going to change anymore. But lo and behold, Bandai decided, you know what? Let's just mess everyone's lives up. So here we are again, and this video is about to show you how we think Bandai just completely
Change the game, man.
Yeah. I think the game's been changed quite significantly. What do you think, Adonis?
Yeah, man. This is a crazy announcement for those of you who don't know what we're referring to. If you live under some kind of rock, Red Purple Law has been officially announced as banned. Can't say we didn't see this coming. The timing is really weird, though. They decided to ban it as of, I think, September 6th, meaning Nationals is going to be an OP7 format without Law. So for like 1 week, the week of freaking Nationals, the biggest tournament in all of One Piece card game, there's going to be a special format where there's no OP8 leaders yet, but we still can't play one of the best leaders in OP7. So a lot of Law players are just reeling right now, I know.
I'm a huge fan of the ban itself, but I think banning it for Nats is just I don't understand the reason. I'm not understanding the reason behind that.
Yeah, that is goofy. For once, I'm very happy with the ban list. This is the first time I actually would pat Bandai on the back and say, hey, good job, guys. You actually did it good. If they had hit Moria too, I could have understood that. But as a Black Yellow Luffy player, I'm silently happy that they didn't. But yeah, good ban list. Just really weird timing. Literally delay it by 1 week and it would have been perfect. But anyway, don't want to spend too long on this. You guys already know the news most likely, but essentially, like Obipity said earlier, this ban list just completely changes the ordering of the kind of the best decks in the game, because Red Purple Law was gatekeeping a lot of stuff out of the meta, and his leaving the meta completely shakes everything else up, allows some bad leaders from before to shine, and some leaders that were previously really solid to actually go down in power just because some of their counters are now more viable decks. So pretty much just got a tier list here for you guys, and we're gonna show you guys what we think the OP8 meta is gonna look like.
Just to start off with, if you have for some reason been living under a rock, the ban that Bandai announced this past couple days is that leader structure 10 leader Trafalgar Law has been banned entirely from the game, and as well as the stage card that most Rob Lucci decks that have been playing, Eni's Lobby. So those two have been banned entirely from the game. If anybody plays them after September 6th, you are allowed to beat them up. I think that's part of the rules.
I saw that too.
Like Anonymous said, a lot of these decks have just been, I don't want to say thrust into like relevance, but some of these decks that Law kind of, or Red Purple Law gate kept, are just so much better now, right? And we're not going to go through all of it, but just to start off with, like, Katakuri gets so much better. Because Law absolutely stopped it. That was like a 90-10 in favor of Red Purple Law. Like, Cat had to really high roll, and Law had to absolutely brick their hand in order for Cat to win that game.
Right.
The same with like RP Luffy, Zoro, Red Green Law. Law just absolutely demolished them.
And now he doesn't have to worry about that. And exactly. The thing is, with Sakazuki banned and Red Purple Law banned, both of those leaders were consistently bottom decking your cards. Lucci, like you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot to mention that Lucci's stage also got banned. So the best deck in the game got kicked out of the game completely, and the second best deck in the game got neutered pretty severely. Like you said, with Lucci, Lucci KOs, he doesn't bottom deck, and so a lot of these decks over here actually do have tech options, or at least some kind of benefit that comes out of getting KO'd. Like, in the Katakuri, like you were mentioning, Perospero is getting you some benefit if he gets KO'd. In the Red-Green Law, you can actually play that 5-cost Luffy who prevents your other units from being KO'd. There's a lot of counterplay here, so I think a lot of these decks are, even though we're ordering them like this on a tier list, a lot of these are like closer to each other than you might think, sort of deal. in terms of power. But yeah. You mentioned Katakuri, you mentioned Red Green Law. Everybody's favorite meme deck, Purple Kaido with like infinite burn from the Black Maria combo. That's actually going to be a decent deck, I think, with Red Purple not existing in the meta. You know that we've got structured at Kaido and B plus, and I know Kalgura is one of your favorite decks from those new leaders. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
I just think it's a solid deck. I don't think it'll be that good. I still think Anel is a better yellow leader.
Sure.
And even Vegapunk, as you guys see, I think it's just overall better because it's kind of Vegapunk is kind of like, I don't want to say it's like Law. It's similar to Dofi in the sense that you go wide.
Mm-hmm.
Its one biggest downfall, obviously, being that it cannot swing. Leader can't swing,
right?
And being a 2-life leader. But I think Kalgura it's a super fun deck. I just don't think it is as good as an L. And I think that because it generally plays lower cost characters with lower power, and you're taking your life to play a card each turn, it's a little underwhelming.
Sure. Fair. But fact of the matter is that, it'll have good matchups.
Yeah, it's basically my Foxy of OP8.
Sure, fair enough. And then we've also got in the B plus tier here, we've got Purple Black King, who is also a removal focused deck, kind of like Lucci, with a little bit of, ramping and card draw gimmicks, kind of a mixed bag there. But yeah, pretty solid. With Law not in the meta, is probably going to be a pretty viable option. And then going to the A tier here, I know you also mentioned Vegapunk. We've got Boa, who again was kind of there from before, and solid deck again, which now is able to keep up with the slower pace of the game. Red Blue Marco is, I think, actually a really crazy deck. If it weren't for just how powerful some of the older decks are, I actually think this guy would be like top tier, because 9-cost consistently stacking 9-cost Sanji into 9-cost Whitebeard is a nutty combo. But again, some of the older decks are just that much more powerful. Purple Yellow Pudding is one that I can actually see going up over here. We've got her in the second of A tier, and she, if she high rolls and just ramps every single turn, that like Big Mom can come out on like, I think it's possible for it to come out on turn 3. I might be wrong, but I think it's like consistently turn 4 she is dropping a 10-cost mom, which is insanity.
Yeah. Turn 3, I think a lot of things have to go your way. I think.
Yeah, like with the trigger and stuff. Yeah, I think
the trigger, and if you were able to play a Bon Clay or a Miss All Sunday or something, maybe. I'm not trying to do math right now, but I can see the potential. And again, just a leader that can ramp and play your 10 moms that quickly is just you're going to have some kind of advantage.
For sure. Not to mention the 9-cost Purple Big Mom, which is a heal plus removal, which is actually in some cases scarier than 10 Mom. But anyway, Pudding can totally see her again being a good deck now that we don't have just a crazy rush down aggro deck in the meta. And then Perona again was already having some success before. Still just going to be a good deck for those who invest the time in it. But let's start filling out that A+ tier Bippity. Sure. Let's see what the top dogs are actually going to be.
So to start off with, we have Bonnie at basically the bottom of our A+ tier, and I think that's just because all the other decks you're going to see here are just a little bit better and have better matchups into the other A+ and the S tier. Yeah,
that's fair. Bonnie is probably like I don't want to say the slowest, but just kind of the most one-note deck of the A+ tier. Just,
it's definitely I don't think slowest, right? You play, even when you do play your rush card, Hody, like you're playing it to win the game. You're not playing it to develop board or to kind of just be aggressive, like the way Anel uses rush Anel. The 7-cost Anel. Anel uses that to apply a lot of pressure mid game, and then late game, true. Anel wants to use like its bigger bodies to heal and then swing big. Hody is kind of one of those cards, similar to Kid and Killer in Red P Law, where you're kind of waiting to the end game to like kind of finish the game off. So I would say it is the slowest deck in the game.
Yeah, that's fair. Another slow deck in the game, but one that becomes a lot more tyrannical once it hits that top end is NL. So we're gonna say that's the second lowest in the A plus tier. This deck again doesn't change much, pretty much doing what it did before, but honestly I'm not sure how much the red purple law ban affects this, at least for really good NL players. I feel like a lot of really good NL players actually reported that they had a good time against red purple law. They just keep them at 4 life and then just pop with Gadatsus and 9 cost Yamatos and stuff like that until they just overran them with a bunch of units that couldn't be removed. But I will say the Lucci stage being hit makes a big difference for NL. I feel like I think he has a much better matchup into Lucci now than he did previously.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. The law matchup, I didn't find it particularly tough. I'm not saying I'm a good player at all, but I like to think of a good NL player.
Yes, I agree.
And people were just like, oh, like law just goes wide and then they can swing a bunch of 5s and 7s, and yeah, they can, but at the end of the day, like, you have a ton of cards in hand, and if you're able to remove at least 1 unit per turn, you're kind of chilling.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, NL's actually in a pretty good spot in that matchup if he plays it right. But his Lucci matchup is just that much easier now because Lucci can't.
Significantly easier without stage.
For sure. And now we have got Black Gecko Moria. Again, just a really solid deck that saw a lot of saw a lot of rise and play at towards the regional season of OP7, and we think it's still just going to be solid, still just going to be doing what it does, kind of board swarm with a side of KO.
Board swarm, playing Perona your turn 1 or turn 2, getting them to discard a card. Just having the ability to just have your opponent discard cards while either countering so that you're not able to play another Perona next turn if you take a life. Or just taking the life and just having, now you have 2 swings, potentially 3 the next turn, depending on what your turn 1 was. But yeah, just an aggro deck with removal and being able to keep your hand size low.
Yep. A very obnoxious deck to play against for sure. Next up, we've got Blue Dofi, who is, I think, sees one of the biggest jumps in power because of this ban list. I know Blue Dofi, actually, a lot of the best Blue Dofi players were, again, doing pretty okay into Law. I don't think it was an easy matchup by any means, but, it was maybe just a little worse than a 50-50 for Dofi. But now Law is gone, and Lucci loses his stage, which is huge for Dofi, because Dofi is the total opposite strat of NL, right? Like, instead of dropping a bunch of big units, a bunch of tall units for you to KO, he's dropping a bunch of little units, like 4 costs, and stage is an absolute just destroyer in that matchup, because you just activate stage and one of Dofi's units is already within range of KO. So now, I mean, bro is just running free. Like, a lot of Luccis have just said they're going to replace their stages with Ice Ages. Dofi's like, sure, go ahead. Like, use your Ice Age for my 4 cost unit. Like,
like my 4 cost Weevil, yeah.
Yeah, legit.
-5 plus 1 Dawn. Like that. Yeah. Again, it's just Dawn inefficiency at that point. Whereas like Lucci's biggest, I think like the biggest pro of Lucci was just how efficient they could be with their Dawn. And then now having to use a whole Dawn just to move, just to reduce a 4 or potentially like a 6 cost, like a 6 cost Boa.
Yeah, and lose hand size, by the way. Like right. Dofi, actually, a lot of Dofi players have said when Lucci doesn't see stage, they can actually absolutely cook Lucci in that matchup, and I've seen it. Yeah, so Dofi is going to be doing really well. Not to mention, surprise, surprise, Nami is coming up on this list. Dofi is probably the best deck into Nami now that Law is gone, because it does the same strategy of spamming a board full of 5k attackers, and he doesn't need to attach a Dawn. He can just comfortably go 5k, 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 5k while using like Gravity Blade to bottom deck their Kayas and stuff and ruin their math while also getting rid of their pieces that they need to keep milling through the deck. So Dofi is going to be very good, actually. Could even go higher on this list, but we're being a little conservative with our estimate right now.
Just a side note, if any of you guys have an alt Dofi that you're selling, please let us know. I'm interested in buying one. It is a tough leader to find.
Dude, oh man.
And
Black Yellow Luffy.
Black Yellow Luffy Adnano, so I'll let you take this.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I will say this deck, is weird because I think it's fallen overall in its power because of the law ban, but it's also still in kind of a good spot. So it this deck can really do well into a lot of the best decks in the game. It does get kind of randomly cooked by some off-meta stuff as well as Bonnie, but yeah, it's just like, like Lucci doesn't have the stage anymore, which does actually make a difference, believe it or not. Before, if Lucci's were running tech cards like the 6-cost Brook or the Zombie Luffy, which trash instead of KOing, those were able to kind of break through your blocker sabos by using the stage to their advantage. Now that they don't have stage, I think a lot of their Luffy tech cards actually become even worse. So yeah, Luffy is having a good time still against Lucci. He's still having a good time against Moria. Dofi, I know blue in some matches can be pretty a disadvantage if they see a lot of gravity blades, but I still think he does well overall. And yeah, I mean, I think he's just a good all-rounder deck. He's like, no one is comfortable seeing a black yellow Luffy usually, except for maybe Bonnie. But yeah, like, he's just a threatening, just overall strong deck that in the hands of a good pilot is going to be able to like beat a lot of the best decks in the game. But again, overall, I think the law matchup was actually kind of a good thing for him, and it kind of gate-kept some of his counters out of the meta. So yeah, it remains to be seen. It may fall a little bit, but I still think he's going to be one of the best decks in the game.
I'll be honest, we're keeping it this high in A+ only out of respect for Adonis. I do think it will go down.
Yeah, I can see it at the bottom of A+ or A.
Closer to like the bottom of A+, just because stuff like Boa, Dofi, Nami are just, they do so much better into Luffy than some of these other some of these other decks. And like you said, Law kind of gate kept those decks a little bit. So
yeah,
you're gonna see more of it. It'll just have, numbers wise, it will just have a few more mismatches.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
And then everyone's favorite leader to hate, Nami. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to dwell too much on this. It's just good. The only deck that did well into it consistently was Law, and now that Law is gone, it is arguably top 3 deck in the format, and I think it's top 3 actually.
Yeah, that the only thing, it's like, I'm not sure if Nami players will have like a moment of self-realization where they sit across from another Nami player and realize how awful the mirror match is, because that's the thing, right? Like, Nami only works in a meta where there's not too many Namis, because if Namis are playing Namis all the time, it is literal non-play at that time. Like, you can't even accomplish the main strategy of the deck because your opponent doesn't even have attackers, even if they wanted to swing, right? Like, you're not swinging, your opponent's not swinging. Neither of you can mill cards effectively, and if you try milling cards just like hard, brute forcing through it with like Kaya, then you might go to time and then lose because your deck is actually lower in count than your opponent.
Absolutely like, insane time or like overtime rules for Nami Mirror.
It's so goofy.
There is no positive to playing this deck.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that you might win, which, I mean, yeah, I guess, like,
yeah,
you're playing to win, but like, let's be real, you're not playing the same game as everyone else. Yeah,
no, it's just, if you play this, you're an awful person. If you come across another person playing it, you'll realize it.
Yeah.
So I hope some of the Nami players.
Yeah, to all you Nami players, I hope you go to regionals and the only thing you see is mirrors.
It's Nami, yeah, exactly. And I hope the rest of us can actually play One Piece and just, yeah, for real. Anyway, going up to S, or no, sorry, last one in A+ tier, we're gonna have the king himself. Lucci is still pretty damn good.
Yeah, even like we talked a lot about how Eddie's Lobby being banned kind of hurts Lucci. I don't think it hurts it enough to not make it like top 2. Top 2 in the format. Like, it's still consistently removing everything and just having Moria available to it at all times. It's naturally just gonna be really good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you look at the reactions of a lot of these players, the Law players were in shambles, no pun totally intended, and the Lucci players kind of just shrugged. They're like, okay,
okay, we'll adjust.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, this not having stage definitely makes a difference. I think, if we were to somehow zoom in on these rows here on a microscopic level, they're all these leaders, like from the beginning of A plus tier to the end of A plus tier, are much closer together than they were before, just because of the lack of stage. Like the gap between Lucci at the top of A plus and Bonnie at the bottom of A plus is much lower than it was before, thanks to stage being gone. But Lucci is still really damn good, and he is going to find a way to continue to do his relentless KO strategy and still just be one of the top dogs in the game.
Yep. And then last but not least, we have Reiju.
What a twist!
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, you remove one like aggro deck and you replace it with another one. Again, like Reiju's not as bad or as toxic
oppressive
as Law was.
Yeah.
Because Law was consistently removing your board as well as developing 2 to 3 characters per turn and then just swinging a bunch of 5s, 6s, and 7s. Reiju can only do that to a certain limit.
Right.
It can play two units max, maybe 3 if they had for some reason have a ton of Dawn. But it's just the aggro and the aggressiveness, the tempo that this deck is able to still have. It just kind of outweighs everything else any other leader wants to do.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
This is more of a testament to how crazy Law was. The only reason Reiju wasn't A+ before was because Law absolutely destroyed it.
Yeah, exactly. And not even on like a matchup level, on like a freaking mechanics level. Like Reiju's characters need to be at less Dawn than the opponent to get their effects, and Law was always at less Dawn than you because he minuses 3 a turn, whereas Reiju minuses like 1 per turn. So Law being gone is the greatest thing for Reiju that could have possibly happened. I know all the Reiju fanatics are celebrating, and I'm happy for him, honestly. This is it's irritating how many cards it can have in hand, but I don't think this is an oppressive deck, so I'm honestly happy to see the top deck be something that's not just obnoxious. She's another leader I was kind of mentioning before. I know I got a little I was mentioning my little tangent about how bottom decking is so much worse than KOing for a lot of the decks on this list, and the same is true for Reiju, because if you bottom deck her cards, she's kind of cooked. But if you trash her cards like Lucci can, or like some of the other decks on this list can, she doesn't care that much. She's just gonna play the baby version and pull out the big version from trash again. So she really doesn't care about Lucci. I think that's the reason she's at the top. For the same reason we put Law at the top in our last tier list. Like, I don't think she's got a terrible matchup into any of these. I don't think there's any bad matchups for Reiju right now in the meta. And she's just going to be a really good deck. She's going to give Nami a run for her money. Lucci doesn't scare her all that much. All of these decks over here, they're either neutral or good matchups for her, I feel like. And for that reason, I think Reiju's really, really going to cook in this coming meta.
Yeah, should be fun. I will probably be joining Mujinator and playing Reiju.
Please! You want Dofi? You want Reiju? This dude just plays every deck.
No. I want Dofi for collection. I'm playing Reiju.
Okay.
Most likely. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe in like 2 days I'm like, you know what? I'll just go back to her now.
Oh my god, man.
But we'll see.
Well, all right, guys. Let us know what you think of this list. We're just kind of going off the cuff here. It's hard to say how some of the OP8 leaders will factor in till we actually see the most common builds and stuff like that. But I think for a lot of the old leaders, this seems like a pretty solid prediction. This is how we think the RP Law ban is going to change up the metagame, as well as the Ennie's Lobby ban. And what decks are you guys looking forward to playing? What pet decks do you think were being gatekept by Law and Lucci that you think you're going to be able to bring out at tournaments now? I know personally, if I was just telling Obipity, if I get an invite to Nats, I'm freaking taking Red Black Sabo, man. I don't care. Yeah. No, but anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. Let us know what decks you're excited to play, what you're looking forward to, and what you think of the ban list. And we will see you guys in the next video. Peace.